In this episode, we walk through an epically specific magazine. So far, this channel has covered the models, the paint schemes, and light amounts of lore, but we are yet to delve into any of the publications dedicated to Epic. Of course, there have been the usual drip feed of Epic articles over the literal decades in a smattering of White Dwarf magazines. Yet between the years 2000 to 2002, Fanatic Games, formerly Fanatic Press, released a series of magazines dedicated to Epic 40,000, the very accurate title of Epic 40,000 Magazine. It was a great time for paper pushing, for Fanatic Games also created magazine runs for the likes of Blood Bowl, Warmaster, and Battlefleet Gothic, to name a few. As you can tell, these magazines covered what would become known as specialist games. In the 90s, Games Workshop had the brilliantly named Fanatic Division. This division would create additional games that fell under the Warhammer 40k or fantasy universe, but not fully connected to the core games in each universe. The publishing arm of Fanatic Games, Fanatic Press, was the press division that would publish rules, scenarios, tactics that were dedicated to the new game systems that they had created, which was much more streamlined for players and collectors than having random rules or tactics slotted into a White Dwarf each month, maybe. Sadly, nothing lasts forever, and in 2004, Fanatic Press was moved online to become Fanatic Online. From 2005 to 2008, 99 free digital issues were created that covered the entire Fanatic range of game systems. Fanatic Online was sadly then shut down in 2008. During its lifespan, Fanatic Games and Press were responsible for supporting games such as Battlefleet Gothic, with 19 issues of Battlefleet Gothic magazine, Inquisitor, with 10 issues of Exterminatus, 3rd edition Epic 40k, with 4 editions of Firepower, Necromunda with 6 issues of Gang War, and 4th edition Epic 40k, with Epic 40k magazine ranking in at 10 issues. And that's just to name a few. Thank you, Fanatic, for creating such interesting worlds within worlds, and fleshing out interesting corners of the fantasy and sci-fi realms. Acquiring these magazines isn't too hard on the whole. Obviously, they're not as numerous as issues of White Dwarf, but they're definitely out there. Some issues are harder to find than others, and their asking price will generally let you know when you've come across a rarer issue than most. Let's now take a look at issue 1 of the Epic 40k magazine. We start with the cover, where we are presented with the impressive Warmonger Titan, which is the white metal upgrade kit created by Fanatic for the legendary Imperator Titan. The subtitles let the reader know that this magazine was created by the same folks that released Firepower magazine, and that there are new Titan rules for Adeptus Titanicus 2. The inlay of the magazine shows a full-color classic battle of Edition 1 Adeptus Titanicus, followed by the contents and editorial page. From this point onwards, the rest of the magazine from page 1 to 48 are in black and white until we reach the end matter of the magazine, where the magazine becomes full colour again. Warwick Kinraid explains with excitement the plans for the forthcoming Epic 40k magazine series. To quote, "It's exciting times for Epic players, and we have big plans for the game, including more new miniatures and new supplements, as well as a regular magazine." Warwick continues by announcing that Jervis Johnson will present a new rules system for Adeptus Titanicus 2, and the editorial continues with an interesting concept that is a slightly symbiotic interplay between rules creator Mark Mullins and the players of Epic. Mark will present an experimental rule in the magazine and ask for feedback from the players to see if the said experimental rule should become a new rule or not. To quote, "This way you have your say in the future of the hobby." The editorial concludes with the mention of the new release of the Emperor-class Titans. Pages 2 to 4 cover the Epic magazine introduction, written very candidly by Jervis Johnson, and in his own words he says, "Now I'm sure that all of the readers of this magazine are aware that the current edition of Epic has had some problems." And Jervis continues, "It has been said that the support we've produced for the game has not been good as it could have been, lackluster even." Well, out of the gate, this is a brutal summation of the then current state of Epic by one of its own creators, a creator who continues by saying, to quote, "Epic 40,000 remains the game I'm most proud to have worked on." Yes, even above Blood Bowl. The level of transparency and honesty in this introduction is wild to read after all these years. It's not often you see such self-awareness laid out to bear by a creative in such high standing. Jervis continues to lay out the plans of balancing streamlined gameplay with gritty, realistic detail. The introduction continues by laying out an almost manifesto-like roadmap for the Epic game system. I feel like Jervis is telling himself as much as he's telling us what the plans are moving forward. Epic was going to get assistance from Forge World by creating the additional models and fortifications to keep Epic fresh, alongside a robust mail order service in the UK and the US. Jervis then gives context as to why such plans and changes are being made to Epic, mainly due to the criticism the current form of the game was receiving. But Jervis defends his corner by meeting the criticism halfway, rather than completely relinquishing to it. Jervis believes that complexity can be added in layers to the core game, rather than starting from the ground up. Epic 40,000 magazine would be how such layers are presented through the coming issues. The overarching point seems to be that Epic was supposed to be geared towards Titans, but had got caught up in the minutiae of the supporting cast, rather than allowing big robots to bash 7 shades of you-know-what out of each other. And that was in his own words. I told you it was candid. The tiny vehicles and infantry stands were the supporting cast Jervis was referring to, and so the focus of this first issue would be to pull back out and hone in on the might of the giant war machines to alleviate from the minutiae of said supporting cast. Jervis then admits to having nicked Rick Priestley's ideas from War Master on how to update the game system without confusing everyone, by publishing new rules and experimental rules in the Epic magazine. If the experimental rules are well received, then they will be upgraded to the new rules. On page 4, a very nice service has been offered for a small fee, whereby photocopies could be supplied for sources of information on rules that may no longer be available. The introduction is wrapped up with Jervis making a call to action for all Epic fans to spread the word and share the fun of Epic and Adeptus Titanicus battles. For in his own words, the more that people are playing the game, the more support I can give it. And Jervis ominously concludes, just remember, the future of Epic could lie in your hands. Have fun. From pages 5 to 22, we are given a deep dive into the Adeptus Titanicus 2 rules by Gav Thorpe, where Imperial Titans are returned to their rightful place as the kings of the Epic battlefield, but it seems that there is a sort of merging between Epic and Adeptus Titanicus rather than being treated as completely separate systems. This is basically acknowledged in the foreword. To quote, "In the fullness of time, we will combine all of Adeptus Titanicus 2 rules together into an official supplement for the Epic 40,000 game system." Just as an aside, from this writing, it wouldn't be for another 18 years before we saw a new standalone Adeptus Titanicus game in 2018. The end of page 5 consists of fluff and context before moving on to the chunky new rules for the Titans. Pages 6 to 7 cover close combat rules, weapons, and sequence of play. This game system is utterly targeted at Titan versus Titan gameplay, nothing else. The sequence of play follows the same sequence of play as the Epic 40,000 game system, showing the previously mentioned crossover between the two systems. Pages 8 and 9 deal with things as arbitrary as shooting, to things as more interesting as dangerous or impassable terrain rules. Page 8 is the first time we get to see the panels taken straight from the pages of the awesome Warhammer Titan graphic novel that have been interspersed throughout the magazine. Pages 11 to 15 continue the barrage of in-depth rules, and then on page 16 we're given some data sheets. Page 17 offers an Epic Battlefield mission generator instead of the Epic 40,000 Battles book scenario system. Page 18 presents 6 deployment maps and lets the reader know that the new objective cards can be found on the back cover of this magazine. Pages 19 to 21 give the reader an in-depth data sheet for Warhound Scout Titan, the Reaver Battle Titan, and the Warlord Titan. Page 22 is an advertisement for prospective writers to contribute their writing to potentially be published in official GW products. We move on to pages 23 to 26, where the Epic 40,000 Firepower section of the magazine takes place. In this section, the terms of NR and ER are explained in depth. In brief, these terms break down to new rules and experimental rules. Where experimental rules can only be used with an opponent's consent, new rules are obligatory for correct gameplay. The articles continue with examples of how experimental rules are being implemented in specific situations to potentially solve current sticking points within the Epic 40,000 game system. Page 25 introduces Chris Such's mini scenarios, which was seen as an excellent way to introduce a newcomer to Epic. Page 25 lastly offers a useful backlisting of Firepower rules and their current state of approval within the experimental and new rule strata. Page 26 continues with the mini scenario explanation of how to implement 2 1,000-point armies in 7 separate scenarios that have no impact on the overall flow of a campaign. Page 27 is dedicated to a wonderful questionnaire which, depending on the answers you provide, would be a vital first-hand opinion that would help craft the direction of Epic moving forward, from what rule or miniature should be focused on next. Page 28 and 29 consist of an FAQ for the magazine and an advertisement for the Imperator Titan combined with the franchises that Fanatic is responsible for, such as Blood Bowl, War Master, and Wartime. A website, telephone number, and email contact are provided at the base of the page, alongside a mailing list coupon. Pages 30 to 33 cover a new pitched battle scenario written by Tim Barton. The scenario involves 2 armies facing off each other in a no man's land, where the result of a dice roll leads to one of 6 missions to play from. Page 33 rounds off the variation and additional rules to play Barton's scenario correctly. Page 34 introduced the Emperor-class Titans with a page of fluff. We then proceed to page 35 with a full data card of the Imperator Titan. Page 36 covers special rules for the Imperator Titan and continues on with the introduction of the Mega Warmonger Titan. An interesting tidbit of information in this introduction is that it has been lost to the midst of time as to which Titan was created first, the Warmonger or the Imperator Titan. I just thought that was kind of interesting. We close the magazine's focus on rules at page 37 with the full data card for the Warmonger Emperor Titan. The last few sections are dedicated to the Fanatic mail order section, mailbag, complete Epic catalogue, and the aforementioned full-colour objective cards for Adeptus Titanicus 2. In the mail order section, a wide array of what would today be considered very rare models are presented, such as the War Master siege equipment to the Battlefleet Gothic Tyranid High Fleet models. Such models are rare because Fanatic magazine itself was niche. This was not part of the, say, White Dwarf ecosystem, which meant a lot less eyeballs were on these more compartmentalized magazines. In the mailbag section, we have a mixed bag, pun intended, of questions answered by the GW staff, from subjects such as compliments to suggestions from readers. On page 44, you are given the opportunity to create a Mega Bundle Black Library subscription to the Citadel Journal, Warhammer Monthly, and Inferno magazine for year 2000, £70. Page 45 gives a full-page display of the beastly Warmonger Emperor Titan upgrade kit in higher detail than the mail order page. Page 46 advertises the original Imperator Titan for sale above the announcement of mail order now being available online. Pages 47 to 48 list the current range of Epic models for sale at eye-watering prices of affordability. In conclusion, it makes for an interesting read. Like most written works, it speaks of its time. Epic 40,000 magazine has an honesty and purity that I love so much about it. It wants to win you over, and is almost openly seeking the reader's forgiveness due to the perceived failures of the previous game systems. It makes me feel like I'm being spoken with and not spoken to. Look, if you love Epic as much as I do, then maybe try to pick up these little magazines. They're a lovely niche time capsule for a niche I want remembered for as long as possible. Thank you for watching. Until next time, Bunker 6, signing off.